Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing really well. In this video, I'm going to talk about Docker storage. What are the options that are available for Docker storage? But before that, let's try to understand how an image is built. So whenever you would be installing a Docker, it creates a folder structure like under the var lib docker directory, you will find containers, images, volumes, and many more subdirectories. Each has this purpose of storing information about the containers that are currently running, the images that you have built currently available on your machine, and any kind of volumes that you have created in that through Docker. Those are available in these folders. Now let us try to understand how an image layer is built. So images are built using a layered architecture. Each of the instructions that you write in your Docker file generates a layer. So if I consider like this typical example over here, it would generate 5 layers and each of the layers would have specific size. Now, if you're trying to use a similar Docker file, the only change, for example, is this line over here, which is instead of copying all file to this directory, if you are trying to copy only one specific file, or if you're making any kind of changes in any of this, say for example, the 4th line, Docker caches the layers that are available to the lines previous to that specific instruction before if there are any changes, then only it picks up the new layer, it creates the layer, otherwise it reuses the similar images. So if I consider if the first 3 lines of these images are the same, then it's going to reuse them. In that way, it kind of saves you from creating repeatable storages, like repeatable layers and files. Now, once we have done like how in a specific container, when an image is built, layers are generally immutable type. Okay, so if you want to run a container, what happens is if you're trying to in an image, and if there is an existing file, you're trying to update that file. So Docker follows what is called copy on write. So whenever an image is currently in a running phase, that is through whenever a container is running, there is this layer which is a container layer. In that container layer, what happens is it creates a replica or a copy of the specific file, or any file that your container is generating at the running phase, or any file that is created randomly during the, say for example, it could be a log file, it could be a txt file. They are created in this container layer, which is read write layer. Now, if you want to save this specific files like that is getting generated, or you want the change that is done when the container is running, because as you know, containers are ephemeral in nature. So once this container is dead, this entire container layer would be gone. But you might not want that to happen, like the temp.txt file or any kind of modifications that you do, you want that to be saved and persisted. In that case comes the typical use case of volumes or bind mounts. So there were 2 ways, not only 2, there are multiple ways, but the main 2 things that are of our interest is, one is a volume mount, another is a bind mount. So if I show you an example of what a volume mount is and what a bind mount is. So bind mount, if I talk about it, is like it's a bind mount is a file or a directory on the host machine. So it could be any file directory structure, okay, in your host file system. And if you want that to be mounted on a specific directory, that is achievable using Docker command. Now, how it works, you simply specify the exact path on your host and it maps to a path inside the container. The control in that case is the host machine has total control over the file system, and the non-Docker processes on the host can modify these files. So anyone who is coming to this directory, has access to this directory, can modify the files inside this path. And that would directly, I would say, reflect the containers, the files that are available to the containers through that directory that is mounted to. Now, yes, typical use case is it's based for any development based environments where you want to sync your source code from your local machine into your containers in the real time. What are the cons of this? Well, it's depending upon like the access to the hosts. Your contents within your container might get disrupted, the directory that is mounted to. So that is one I should say a con of that process. Now talking about the volumes approach, volume mount. So volumes are generally the preferred way of how data persistence should work whenever using a containerized based platform. So first you have to create a Docker volume, and that falls under the scope of the Docker Docker file system that is also available within your host machine. However, once you create that Docker volume, it can now it can be mounted onto your container, and that is completely managed by by Docker itself. So control wise, you don't manage the specific directory path, but Docker on your behalf does that. This makes a more secure and easier way to backup or migrate if you want. Use cases, it's the best way for like production, any kind of production database or any kind of storage queues that you are trying to use in your solution, because where you want Docker to handle the storage lifecycle, the performance optimizations and everything. Now talking about the demo part, so let us try to see the first example where we can actually bind a host path to a container. So this is done quite easily. So for example, docker run -d, and say for example documents POCs, and say for example k8s, and over here, for example, I want to mount a file. I want to mount this directory onto a var lib location of an nginx server, of an nginx image. Okay. Okay, I just missed a -v over here where it would showcase a volume, and this is created. Okay, and if I try to see the directory structure that is available in this folder, it actually corresponds to this folder where my current this multi-container folder is available over here. So let us try to do one thing. Within this, I would like to make say for example cat one step above, that is my within this k8s folder I have this multi-container folder, and over here I am trying to create a abc.txt folder file. Okay, and over here I will write some random stuffs and control C, and if I show you, you see that in this directory my abc.txt is there, right? So if abc.txt is there, let's try to see the content of this abc.txt, and mind you, this is the same directory which is actually mounted on top of my nginx container. So if I want to see docker ps-a, my mistake, yeah, so this is my nginx application which is currently nginx container which is currently running, and if I try to show you docker logs -f and followed by this, so this is the current log. Okay, now say for example I want to show you that this specific file is available through the container. The abc.txt that I created is available through the container. How do I show that? So over here I go docker exec. This is how you try to create log over here, create a interactive terminal over here. I would like to initiate a bean bash. Now I am logged into the container, and mind you, the folder where the location where I mounted is var_lib, and over here you will see this multi-container, which is the same folder which is available over here, and abc.txt file has been mounted. Now if I try to get the content of this, I easily get the content over here. Now from here, if I try to delete abc.txt, and this is, now if I just perform ls, I would have this multi-container folder only available. Now if I try to exit from this and I try to ls, I could only see that my one step above, I only have this multi-container folder available, while previously I had the abc.txt file. So this is how the bind mount works. Okay, let us try to just docker ps docker rm. Okay, so it's currently running, so I need to stop this. Docker stop. Yes, this one has stopped, so the container has stopped for now. And if I want to remove it, docker rm, and that's how my container is removed. So if I just try to see docker ps, I don't have any running containers up. Now in this case, I would like to show you how a volume mount works. So if I want to create a volume mount, docker volume, I believe it's docker create volume, and say for example vol1. Okay, docker create volume vol1. Okay, I'm making some mistakes over here. Just let's try to create. Okay, it's docker volume create command. That's the command that needs to be used. So for that, docker volume create, say for example vol1. Now if I want to inspect docker volume, inspect vol1. So this gives me the information about the details where my mount point is, and as you can see that var_lib docker volumes, under there a vol1 folder subfolder has been created, and over there the data resides. So this is where the docker volume is available. Now if I want to show you, this is my docker desktop, and if I show you, so this is my volume, and this volume it's not currently mounted to any directory of a running container. Now we'll try to do that. Docker run -d and then -volume vol1 colon var_lib and nginx, and this is what my container is running. And volume is mounted. Now if I try to go over here in the containers, so this is where my container is, and let us go to volume section over here, and vol1, as you can see there's a green sign that indicates that vol1 is in use. So if I click on that, I get to see all the volume folders that are mounted, that are available in the stored data. So if I go back to here and execet-it, and I'm going to initiate a bash instance over here, and I go to /var/lib, and this is where my mount is currently. And let's say for example cat a.txt, some random stuffs, and then I save it, and in this directory I could see that a.txt has been created in this container directory, which is /var/lib. Now if I go on to show you over here, in the vol1 volumes, you can see over here that there is a.txt file is created, and if I open, you will find this is the content. And say for example, if I want to edit it as well, and if I want to save it, this is saved. This is like from Docker desktop, I'm accessing the directory, the direct directory, which is var lib docker and then volumes. Over there I'm accessing the vol1. From there I'm trying to access it, and I'm updating this. Now if I want to check the content again over here, this is where it lies. Now the similar, let's try to do one thing. Let us try to use another image, and we'll try to use the same volume to mount, so that this would demonstrate like multiple containers sharing the same volume. Now let's try to use this, and instead of nginx, say for example busybox. So it will try to download the busybox image, and the busybox image is downloaded, and this is the container instance docker ps. Sorry, this is my busybox, but it somehow got exited. So let us try to see docker logs -f. Okay, so let's try to do it without busybox. So let's try to do it with Alpine image. So it has pulled Alpine, and now docker ps, and even the Alpine got exited because nginx is running as a process inside, and this Alpine and busybox, they're just using the shell script command. Since it's unable to find any arguments along with the command, that's why it's kind of exiting. My mistake. Let's try to do it with another nginx image. So yeah, so now one is silicalum, and the other one that is running is undefined. So what we'll try to do is we'll try to docker exec-it and followed by silicalum, and then bin/bash. And over here, if I go var lib, and again you see the a.txt is available. So this is another container, which is the silicalum, and we already have the container name forwardbirding already available up running for the past 4 minutes. So in this scenario, what I have shown you, like the single image, a single volume which is managed by Docker is mounted to multiple containers. So in that way, we are able to use a single volume, and that would be shared across multiple containers. So this is how it generally works. There's another scenario where you do not need. So if there is a volume and you haven't created a volume, for example, and you just passed a name, for example, again here, say we have been using vol1, say vol100, and I'm creating another nginx image. So in that case, what happens, if you come over here in the volume section, you will find a vol100 is created automatically. So you don't need to create a volume explicitly while running the container, while executing the docker run command and mounting the volume. You can actually create and mount it dynamically during the creation. So that's how a volume mount works, and that is also preferable. So this video falls under the precursor of before proceeding with my subsequent sessions on Docker volume, on Kubernetes volume, which is will cover the concept of PVC and persistent volume clean and storage classes. That will give you a basic idea on how volume works in a multi-container environment. And I hope you liked the video, and definitely if you have any questions, please do let me know. I hope you enjoyed. Have a great day ahead. Bye bye.